We believe that approximately 6 billion is necessary to avoid that you push countries in a structural way into poverty. But if you look at just the cost of warfare, is 9 billion every week.
ความขัดแย้งทางภูมิรัฐศาสตร์วิกฤตพลังงานที่กระทบต่อห่วงโซ่การผลิตโลกและแรงกดดันทางเศรษฐกิจที่ส่งต่อไปถึงค่าครองชีพของผู้คนผลกระทบเหล่านี้ไม่ได้หยุดอยู่ที่ประเทศที่เกิดการสู้รบเท่านั้นนะคะแต่ว่าขยายวงกว้างไปทั่วโลกและวิ่งตรงไปสู่คนที่เปราะบางที่สุดในสังคมวันนี้เราจะคุยกับคุณอเล็กซานเดอร์เดอครูอดีตนายกรัฐมนตรีเบลเยียมที่นำประเทศผ่านวิกฤตโควิด -19 ปัจจุบันเขาเป็นผู้บริหารสูงสุดของ UNDP ที่ทำงานอยู่ใน170ประเทศทั่วโลกในโลกที่กำลังแตกแยกเป็นหลายขั้วคำถามจึงไม่ใช่อยู่แค่ว่าการพัฒนายังมีความหวังอยู่หรือไม่แต่คือระบบความร่วมมือที่เคยขับเคลื่อนโลกมากว่า80ปีจะยังช่วยให้เราออกจากวิกฤตนี้ได้หรือไม่You are working in development, especially head of UNDP. How do you see the global development at this very juncture? How do you see the whole picture?
It is more important than ever. We are living in a world that is in turmoil, that is seeing the impact of war, that is seeing the impact of instability, and it is the most vulnerable that do feel the impact. For example, we have made an analysis on what the 8 weeks of war in the Gulf region, what does it mean? And today it is pushing more than 30 million people back into poverty. That is due to the increasing prices of energy, but it's also due to problems in the food systems because a lot of the fertilizers are still blocked in the Gulf region. And you see that the needs for development are higher than ever. And at the same time, we see that the public funding for development has gone down quite a bit over the past years. But it is still crucial. And in a world today where a big part of the debate is dominated by security and by migration discussions and so on, development is the first line of defense. Development is part of a security agenda. If you want to have a stable world, and a stable world is a prerequisite for trade, for investment, for lifting people out of poverty, you need to invest in development.
The whole world is so full of uncertainty, war, fighting, migration, and right now we are facing energy shock. What would be the meeting point between the world in crisis and long-term development?
Well, if you look at the last 25 years, the progress in the world is unseen. Over a period of 25 years, extreme poverty in the world has halved, been divided by 2. If you look at, for example, child mortality, the last 20 years, child mortality has also been reduced by 50%. These are things that humanity has never, ever done. First point is stop the war. The hostilities in the Middle East have an incredible impact on that region, but the impact goes much broader than just that region. But besides that, one of the things that you need to do now is you need to help countries to intervene with time-constrained measures. So these should be measures that are limited in time and that are focused, that are targeted towards the most vulnerable people in the countries. And you need to help them with cash transfers or reduced prices for energy to avoid that they are being pushed in a structural way back into poverty. So we see what is happening now, but we also see that there are plenty of things that we can do to make sure that the world reconnects with development.
What's the means of that intervention? Because as we see it, the world is so fragmented. Globalization, as we know it, has probably collapsed. So that means international cooperation probably is in declining. What would you say?
I'm not convinced. Over the past decades, the trade in the world has increased with an incredible pace. I believe that it will continue, but it will be organized maybe a bit in a different way. I mean, it used to be organized on competitive advantage. I think that besides competitive advantage, countries and businesses will also look at geopolitical risks and will try to have trade relationships which do not have levels of dependency. But I believe that international trade will continue to grow despite all the discussions that we have these days. Intervention, what does it look like? Well, this should be at the macroeconomic level, so it's the IMF or the World Bank or the Asian Development Bank. We believe that approximately 6 billion is necessary to avoid that you push countries in a structural way into poverty. Now, 6 billion is a lot, that is true, but if you look at just the cost of warfare is 9 billion every week. So the cost of what is necessary to avoid countries being pushed into poverty is basically a bit more than the cost of half a week of war.
แต่ถ้าการพัฒนาคือคำตอบแล้วใครควรจะเป็นคนลงมือทำเมื่อระบบพหุภาคีที่เคยขับเคลื่อนความร่วมมือระดับโลกกำลังถูกท้าทายจากทุกทิศทุกทางเรายังพอจะมีความหวังกันอยู่หรือไม่รายงานของ Global Cooperation Barometer 2026 ของ World Economic Forum และ McKinsey ชี้ว่าโลกกำลังเปลี่ยนผ่านจาก Multilateralism สู่การจับกลุ่มพันธมิตรที่เล็กลงคล่องตัวขึ้นและอาศัยความไว้ใจมากกว่ากฎกติกานี่คือโลกที่ความสัมพันธ์ถูกออกแบบใหม่ตามความเสี่ยงและการปกป้องผลประโยชน์ร่วมกันแต่เมื่อความร่วมมือเปลี่ยนรูปแบบการพัฒนายังทำงานบนโครงสร้างเดิมได้อยู่หรือไม่You mentioned IMF, World Bank. Does that mean that you still believe in multilateralism? And what's the role of UNDP with other global institutions?
Well, I think that if you look at the big endeavors that we have as a world, be it fighting climate change, managing migration streams, fighting illegal drug trades, fighting extremism, there is no country in the world, even the most powerful one, that can say, I can do it on my own. No one can do this on their own. And in the world of today, I think you're better off by having good friends than just being on your own. And yes, there is criticism to multilateralism, and part of that criticism, we need to take that criticism. I mean, yes, multilateral organizations need to be faster, and need to be more efficient and need to be more present. But there is way more countries that believe in multilateralism than there are countries who are critical to it. And so it is time that countries who believe that they're better off in working together with others are just a bit more vocal in what they want.
Does the world need new leadership in terms of leading multilateral framework?
Well, at least at the level of the United Nations, a new Secretary General will be elected by end of the year. I think what you need today is leadership that understands that relevance, being it as an international institution, or being it as a government, or being it as a mayor of a city, your relevance comes from trust. And trust you gain by achieving results. People in general are positive on democracy. But if democracy is not solving their problems, they will look into something else. And so having international organizations that understand that how they gain trust is by fixing problems and by finding solutions, that should be our main focus.
ในโลกที่อำนาจไม่ได้กระจุกตัวเหมือนเดิมประเทศไทยเป็นหนึ่งในประเทศที่กำลังวางตำแหน่งของตัวเองใหม่ในเวทีระหว่างประเทศผ่านการปฏิรูปเชิงโครงสร้างและเป้าหมายการเข้าเป็นสมาชิก OECD ค่ะความท้าทายไม่ใช่แค่การยกสถานะของประเทศเท่านั้นนะคะแต่ยังขึ้นอยู่กับว่าไทยจะสามารถปฏิรูประบบต่างๆให้มีประสิทธิภาพมากกว่าการสร้างเมกะโปรเจกต์แบบลอยๆมีกลไกที่โปร่งใสตรวจสอบได้และการเติบโตทางเศรษฐกิจและสังคมจะเกิดขึ้นอย่างทั่วถึงได้จริงหรือไม่
We see that the private sector plays a central role in achieving development. And if you look at the success stories of development in the world, and actually Thailand is an example. It's an example of a country that is soon probably to be part of the OECD, or it has a goal to become part of the OECD by 2028. One of the main elements is a thriving private sector. A thriving private sector that functions when you have political and economic stability, when you have a system of rule of law that is stable, that is dependable, when you have a fiscal system that is transparent. Now, the private sector has their own objective, which is making a profit and growing, but very often this is aligned with our objectives, and our objectives are creating prosperity. Now, what is the best way of creating prosperity? Is to make sure that people have a job.
Does Thailand need to speed up our accession process?
The world is becoming way more multipolar than before. And I mean, it used to be a world where you had a few major powers. We are moving towards a world where you have many, let's call it medium powers, that have an important role to play. And I'm actually rather optimistic on that. Now, the world needs to kind of readjust itself and understanding, I mean, what is the type of international collaboration that is needed, what type of leadership is needed. That will take some time to adapt to this new reality. But one can only be optimistic when you see that countries such as Thailand and others grow, understand that they have a geopolitical role to play based on the economic growth that they have achieved. And to me, that's a consecration of development. I mean, development is not just an academic term. I mean, development leads to more people living in prosperity, more people knowing that their children will have a better life than the life that they have had. That is, to me, what development is, and Thailand is one of the examples of what it can achieve.
What would make difference for Thailand to become OECD member, and what should Thailand focus as of now in the accession program?
Well, it's an ambitious goal to achieve that by 2028, but I'm a fan of ambitious goals. I think ambitious goals make things move. And of course, there's a long list of reforms that are necessary. Reforms such as the procurement law, reforms such as liberalization of the energy market and other utility markets. So there's a long list of reforms that need to happen. And actually, UNDP is a partner in this. I mean, we have been a partner of many countries throughout the world in their path towards becoming part of the OECD, and we are working together with the Thai authorities in achieving that. I think that accession or becoming part of OECD is part of a broader positioning that Thailand is more and more playing a role as a regional player, and as being said, a medium-sized country that wants to play a role in the region, and you see that role is increasing. Meeting of the World Bank and of the IMF taking place in fall of this year will be in Bangkok. So the membership of the OECD is one element, but there's many other elements that show that Thailand is more and more understanding that it needs to play its role in the region, and that having relationships with the rest of the region and understanding the geopolitical role is part of stability and prosperity. Another component in which Thailand has been quite successful is in sustainability bonds, and these are basically bonds where the interest rate that is being paid is linked to certain objectives. Certain objectives, for example, related to reducing the emissions or to the number of electric vehicles on the street. So, our message has always been, sustainability is the right thing to do, not only from a principle point of view, it's also the right thing to do from a business point of view. It leads to more stable business, it leads to technological leadership.
ไม่ว่าจะเป็น Green Tech หรือพันธบัตรเพื่อความยั่งยืน เทคโนโลยีคือเครื่องมือสำคัญที่กำลังช่วยให้ประเทศอย่างไทยออกแบบอนาคตทางเศรษฐกิจของตัวเองได้ค่ะ แต่ว่าในบรรดาเทคโนโลยีทั้งหมดไม่มีสิ่งใดที่สร้างความเปลี่ยนแปลงต่อตลาดแรงงานได้รวดเร็วเท่ากับปัญญาประดิษฐ์หรือ AI IMF ประเมินว่าประมาณ 40% ของการจ้างงานทั่วโลกถูกกระทบจาก AI และในประเทศที่พัฒนาแล้วตัวเลขนี้อาจจะสูงถึงประมาณ 60%ผลกระทบนี้ไม่ได้แปลว่างานทั้งหมดจะหายไปนะคะแต่ว่าลักษณะของงานที่เราทำในวันนี้จะเปลี่ยนไปจากเดิมตั้งแต่การเพิ่มประสิทธิภาพไปจนถึงการปรับโครงสร้างของงานในอาชีพเดียวกันTo what extent Thailand should think about maximizing the use of AI? Otherwise, it can become the main source of inequality instead of strengthening economy.
Now, AI is an incredibly powerful tool. I prefer, instead of calling it artificial intelligence, to me AI is augmented intelligence. And augmented intelligence means that it's an augmentation of our own intelligence. And that's how I look at it. It's an incredibly powerful tool to make us as human beings more powerful. We start using it quite a bit in healthcare. And in many of the very vulnerable countries that we work, you have a lot of first-line medical personnel, nurses, for example, but you don't always have access to doctors. AI is an incredible tool to augment the capacities of nurses and to do filtering on, is a doctor necessary or is a doctor not necessary? But specifically to Thailand, AI is a way of improving the services of governments. And there are many needs for public service where AI can play an incredibly powerful role in just increasing the service level. Of course, you need to do it in a way where people's privacy is being respected, where there are enough rules to make sure that AI is being used in a positive way.
Thailand is quite concerned with economic growth because Thailand is rated as one of the lowest growth in Southeast Asia. And we see AI can make or break factor for the country. What's your take on this?
But by saying that you're not going to use AI, it's going to be worse. So embracing technology is one of the ways in which you can increase your economic growth. Now, what is important for us is that economic growth translates into improvements in the lives of people. One of the ways economic growth should lead to what we call inclusive economic growth is, for example, in job creation. Creation of jobs is for a young population is incredibly important. And so we often work together with governments to make sure that economic growth translates into investments which create a lot of jobs. And there are many industries that actually create quite a lot of jobs. The tourism industry is very labor intensive. The healthcare industry is very labor intensive. That is the same for construction and for others. And so governments need to make choices to make sure that there is enough job creation, especially in countries with young populations.
Thailand is considered as one of the most vulnerable countries in terms of climate change risk. And to tackle that, climate resilience is also important, but probably people think about it as environmental issue. Should it be considered economic issue as well?
It's both. Look, we have climate goals of what is called the Paris Agenda, and that's a responsibility for all of us. And if we want to make sure that the climate change does not have an effect which is not being able to be mastered, everyone has to play their role. We see that in many places of the world, adaptation investments will need to happen. Very often, those investments are economically sound investments. And the logic there is to work with green bonds and work with all types of financing to make sure that those investments can take place. Also there, technology plays an incredible role. Today, the combination of solar panels and batteries is cheaper than fossil fuel. So from a cost perspective, it makes already sense. From a geopolitical perspective, it also makes sense because solar-powered batteries is not subject to the incredible fluctuations and the incredible dependency that we've seen with fossil fuel. So there is today an economic case for investing in sustainable energy. And there is also a geopolitical case, which is actually very sound.
In addition to government role, what's the role of private sector or business community in order to push the country forward?
Well, I think that the future of a country is never defined only by politicians. And I am a former politician, but I would say, please don't leave the discussion on the future of your country only to politicians. It needs to be a broader society debate. And in a broader society debate, politicians have a role to play, the private sector has a role to play, and civic society has a role to play, and academics also have a role to play. So my main element would be, if you are a business leader, if you're involved in the business community, please participate in the public debates. It's important that they are part of that debate and that they're also part of the solution. I just come back from a celebration with the governor of Bangkok metropolitan area, where we awarded on the topic of gender equality the city of Bangkok what we call a gold award on what we call the gender seal. That is because Bangkok is the first city in Asia to achieve that status in the city, and it shows that good economics also has a perspective on equality and has a perspective on gender equality. If you want to use all the talent that you have in a country, well, gender equality is actually probably one of the best things to do.
Young generation of Thai people probably are quite disheartened with the prospect of the future of the country because of job prospect is not quite uplifting, economic growth is not quite good, and probably many of young people like to live in other countries. What would be your message? Because you see many countries around the world in perspective. What's your message for young generation of Thailand in terms of their life prospect?
Who am I to give advice to young people? But I would say that, look, the future of a country is not only built by the political class. I mean, the future of a country is built by young, ambitious people who want to be entrepreneurs, who want to be active in the social sector, who have a hunger, not a physical hunger in their stomach, but a hunger to build their country. And there is no reason that you should not be part of building the society. Now, it's a choice. You can do that in your home country. You can do that somewhere else. I think people should be free in the choices that they make. But my main message is that building a society is something that you can do from different angles. And in the world of today, I mean, the access to technology has never been easier than today. The access to capital has never been easier than today. So all the ingredients are there. So I would say there's no reason not to be a participant in constructing the future of your society.
ตลอดการสนทนาในครั้งนี้ Alexander De Croo ย้ำอย่างหนักแน่นค่ะว่าโลกวันนี้ไม่ได้ขาดทางออกแต่กำลังเผชิญวิกฤตของความร่วมมือในวันที่สงครามเทคโนโลยีและภูมิรัฐศาสตร์กำลังเปลี่ยนโลกพร้อมกันการพัฒนาจึงไม่ใช่แค่เรื่องความช่วยเหลือแต่คือแนวป้องกันด่านแรกของการรักษาเสถียรภาพโลกเราไม่สามารถปล่อยให้ความเหลื่อมล้ำซ้ำเติมคนที่มีโอกาสน้อยที่สุดได้อีกต่อไปส่วนองค์กรระหว่างประเทศก็ต้องพิสูจน์ตัวเองว่ายังจำเป็นต่อโลกยุคใหม่ด้วยการทำงานเร็วขึ้นแก้ปัญหาตรงจุดโดยมีธุรกิจเอกชนและประชาชนเป็นแกนหลักขณะที่ประเทศอำนาจขนาดกลางอย่างไทยก็ต้องใช้เทคโนโลยีและความสร้างสรรค์เป็นกลไกในการสร้างการเติบโตที่ทั่วถึงควบคู่ไปกับการปฏิรูปที่โปร่งใสไม่อิงอำนาจกลุ่มใดกลุ่มหนึ่งย้อนกลับไปที่คำถามเปิดรายการนะคะเราเคยหยุดยั้งสงครามโลกมาแล้วและความก้าวหน้าก็เกิดขึ้นมากมายแล้วเราจะยังทำได้หรือไม่ในยุคที่ซับซ้อนมากกว่าเดิมคำตอบนี้ไม่ได้อยู่ในมือของมหาอำนาจฝ่ายเดียวนะคะแต่อยู่ที่ความกระหายของคนในสังคมที่จะร่วมกันลงมือสร้างความเปลี่ยนแปลงเพื่ออนาคตที่เราอยากเห็นจริงๆ